Hey, I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films. Today we're going to take a look at the new Criterion release, the 4K UHD release of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, starring James Coburn as Pat Garrett and Chris Christopherson as Billy the Kid. This was directed by Sam Peckinpah, who famously directed another revisionist Western, The Wild Bunch. This story covers the end of Billy the Kid's life as he is hunted down by his old friend who is now part of the law enforcement, Pat Garrett. The same story is covered in Young Guns 2 from 1990. Now, I saw this movie first. This is a 1973 movie. Now, this is the first time watching it for me. I really enjoyed Young Guns 1 and 2, but Emilio Estevez is terrific as Billy the Kid. I do like what Chris Christopherson does here, but I have a bias, I guess, towards Emilio Estevez's performance. What is his name? William Peterson plays Pat Garrett, and he is more of a supporting part in Young Guns 2. And Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, Pat Garrett is probably the main character, though Billy the Kid has a lot of screen time as well. It focuses on both characters. They're in different places. One of them's hunting Billy the Kid, and Billy the Kid is in some ways trying to outrun Pat Garrett. But this is a lot better movie than the Young Guns movie. But the Young Guns movie, to me, are more fun. But this one is very thought-provoking. It is very poetic. But it's also very violent, and it's very bloody, and it's fairly awesome, to tell you the truth. Let's take a look at the packaging here. So this is the new Criterion release. So you see the Criterion UHD sticker here. It has a very thick box that it's in, which is very impressive. Inside of it, there's Billy the Kid on the back, Pat Garrett on the front. It's very appropriate. And then we have a booklet inside, and you open it up, and it houses 4 discs. So there are 3 cuts of the movie on these discs. The first cut is the one that I watched, and this is the first one I've seen. Is the 50th anniversary edition. Now this is very interesting. The original editor, they brought him back in, and there's apparently a lot of studio interference with the cut, and Sam Peckinpah, while he was making the movie, was a little bit belligerent. He started down a kind of belligerent, drunken, or a path of maybe drugs or something, but he was hard to deal with, and so he did his cut, the final preview cut, which is on this disc. But he showed it to the studio, and the studio thought it was way too long, and so they asked him to cut it down, and he refused. And he walked away. So the studio had to cut it down to the theatrical version that was released theatrically, which is here. When it was released theatrically, it didn't do very well. But later on, when they released a different cut of the movie, it got more attention. They saw it for more of the genius that Sam Peckinpah was. But there is, the theatrical cut. Not to say. It's still pretty good, and I think this 50th anniversary edition, they kind of crack a major scene, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. The first scene of the movie, that's really the biggest part that's different in any of the cuts in the final preview cut. So again, these are the discs. The 50th anniversary cut, the theatrical cut, both in 4K UHD, and they are both of them have been restored. Here we have a Blu-ray of the same restorations. The Blu-ray has both versions on it, the 50th anniversary and the theatrical cut. And on this disc, it is the final preview cut. Now, this is the cut that Sam Peckinpah showed to the studio that they didn't like, and that cut is on Blu-ray. It is upgraded to a 2K. It's a new 2K scan. But do note that while watching that one, it's not really ready. It doesn't have the color correction that the other versions have, and there's a lot of issues with it as far as that's concerned. But the interesting thing about it is every one of these cuts are very interesting. Every one has different scenes in them, and different takes of the scenes. Some of them have but the biggest part about any of them is the very beginning of the movie, which is which we'll go ahead and just talk about it. Here's what happens at the beginning of the movie. In the original theatrical cut, Billy the Kid's out with his gang, and they're standing there and they're shooting chickens. There's a bunch of chickens, and they're taking shots at them. And Pat Garrett comes up out of nowhere, and he has a big rifle with him. I think it's a rifle. And he shoots, and he starts from further away. It surprises everybody, and he starts shooting the chickens' heads off himself. And then he meets. Then they go in, and Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett sit down, and then they have a talk. Pat Garrett says, "Hey, I gotta I'm giving you 5 days, but you gotta leave. You gotta go to Mexico. These people paid me, and they want you gone, pretty much." Billy the Kid doesn't go. But anyway, after that, there's the opening credits. All right, cut to the 50th anniversary edition, this is an amazing edition here. It was recently re-edited from it basically taking some stuff from the preview edition, and they're cutting it with the theatrical edition. So it's very close to what Sam Peckinpah would have wanted it to be, I think. But at the same time, they crack the opening scene a lot better than Peckinpah had it done in his lifetime. The opening scene in the 50th anniversary and the intended opening scene by Peckinpah, it has Pat Garrett in the future. Well, not in basically his death. It shows Pat Garrett's death. He is murdered, and it really kind of happened like that. I had to look it up, but Pat Garrett was later murdered, and it shows it at the beginning of the movie. And while he's getting shot, it intercuts it with Billy the Kid shooting the chicken heads, and then. But it's an interesting way of starting the movie, and it also is mentioned during the opening sequence that he killed Billy the Kid. So from the beginning, you know that Billy the Kid dies, you know he's dead, and you know that Pat Garrett later dies. Nobody makes it out alive. So it does it. I mean, sometimes people. I mean, it kind of puts a little bit different spin on the movie and your thoughts of it. Even though you know this is a Western based on a true events, so you know these characters are already dead in real life. But at the same time, I guess sometimes when you're watching the movie and you kind of want it more linear. But I thought it was very, very effective. And this is the first time I saw it, and the first time I saw it was watching this version, and I thought it was a pretty neat way of opening it. Though. After I watched it, the 50th anniversary edition, I did go back and watch the theatrical cut, and I did like the chicken scene. The shooting scene is longer in that cut, and you see more of it, and so it's kind of a hard call to me. But I mean, both versions are good. Now in the preview cut. That Sam Peckinpah showed to the distributors, it doesn't work as well. It has that in it, what happens is while that's going on, it pauses and it starts showing credits of people throughout it during the flashback scene, and it works a lot better when the credits happen after all that in the 50th anniversary edition. I think they really cracked that sequence in that. Another interesting thing about this movie is Bob Dylan is in it, and he's third billed in the 50th anniversary cut. And I think maybe the theatrical cut too. He is billed above title. He has a fairly significant part in it. He doesn't say a lot. His character is named Alias, that's what he says his name's Alias, but I think he's just saying he doesn't tell him in his name. He never tells anyone his name, but. He also did the soundtrack for this movie, and it is very amazing, including "Knocking on Heaven's Door," which plays over a very interesting scene where there's a lot of interesting supporting actors in this from westerns too, like Slim Pickens and Jack Elam, and a lot of others. But when Slim Pickens' character gets killed, and most of these guys only have a few scenes, but they're all very effective scenes. And he's dying, and he sits by a lake, and his wife comes over there crying, and it starts playing that "Knocking on Heaven's Door." It's very it's two different styles going on with it, but it actually really works very well. And all the music on here by Bob Dylan is terrific. It was the first time he scored a movie, and it had a lot of problems with getting the score completed because he wasn't used to scoring a movie. He's used to just making songs. Sam Peckinpah tried to get his usual composer just to do some composing, and he didn't want to be second fiddle to Bob Dylan. As far as the transfer, the 4K transfer that is on the theatrical version and the 50th anniversary version, it's very well done. But there are a lot of caveats to that, because this film has a lot of different type of, especially in the 50th anniversary edition, because it starts off in a sepia tone, and then it cuts back and forth. But even looking at, in the first scene, you have these chicken heads kind of popping up, these close-ups of these chicken heads popping up that they shoot. You can see the color really pops out there, and you see a lot of detail on the chickens themselves. Now, a little bit about the transfers. The 50th anniversary edition is supervised and approved by editor and author Paul Sedor and Pat Garrett, co-editor and colorist Roger Spoilitz Wood. I may have probably mispronouncing that horribly. But the new 4K master was created from the 35mm original negative and a 35mm reversal intermediate. On the original theatrical release, the new 4K master was created from the 35mm camera negative. But really, it all looks very organic, and the film grain's there, but it's very natural, and it all has a very nice feel. But you do see a lot of detail that you don't see in the Final Cut preview release, and you probably wouldn't have seen this detail had they not done a restoration in 4K. And when you watch the Blu-ray, you even see instances of less detail. It still looks really nice in the Blu-ray, because the Blu-ray is the same master. It's just less information on the Blu-ray, but it looks very nice. But you can see there isn't as much fine detail because it's Blu-ray, but it still looks fantastic. This is Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, a new Criterion release. I highly recommend it, especially given the new edit of the 50th anniversary edition. It is a little higher than some of the other Criterion releases because of the box, and I think, but maybe because the new edit. But anyway, if you get a chance to like this video and subscribe.